I'm sorry. I get caught up to socializing. We are at a Parsha, the beginning of the book of Shemot, called Shemot. It is possibly one of the longest Parshas that covers the most historical data than any other Parsha in the Torah. It's very long. I don't know if it's exactly the longest, but it certainly covers a lot of history. Shemot introduces our character Moshe Rabbeinu from his birth, taking us to the time in the palace in Egypt, his running away to Midian, finding his new family, wife, father-in-law, and having kids, meeting God, returning to Egypt, and along the way meeting up with his brother Aaron, and finally meeting Pharaoh. This Parsha could have easily been divided into three Parshiot. There are so many stories, so many subplots to list in this summary that it's just, there's too many important familiar stories, so we're gonna kind of go pretty quickly. But one thing that this Parsha does, it introduces us to the relationship that Moshe will have with God throughout the rest of his life. That's a very important thing. So behind all of his family and backstories, the number one importance is this coming together with Hashem. The storyline from birth until he is grown and he actually murders somebody, right? He struck down and hides the person in the sand. That's in chapter 2, verse 12. Moshe is living in the Egyptian palace as the prince of Egypt, the grandson sort of Pharaoh. So we can only assume that he was given the best education, the best upbringing, a very privileged lifestyle. The question is, did he murder that Egyptian man because he was an Egyptian taskmaster, the guy that he murdered, and he felt a kindred spirit to the Hebrews, his fellow Jewish humans? Or was he incensed that one man was striking another? A question we don't know. And then we move on to when he leaves and goes to Midian, and he's helping the daughters of Yisro, the Midianite priest. That's in chapter 2, verse 16 through 22. Again, Moshe demonstrates his character by assisting the daughters of Yisro when the other shepherds were harassing them, and Moshe shoos them off and protects them. The daughters then had the freedom to easily give their camels or animals water at the well. They thank Moshe by welcoming him into their home. Fast forward, he marries Zipporah, one of the women. They have two sons, one named Gershon, for Moses said, "I have been a stranger in a foreign land." Was this famous sentence referring to the fact, I'm a stranger in a foreign land? Was this famous sentence referring to the fact that he was in Midian with his wife's family and not in Egypt? Or was it because he felt connected to God and the Israelites? Again, very interesting question. The end of the second chapter in Shemot shifts focus to God and Moses' relationship with God. God acknowledges, "I have heard the cries of the people, and I am mindful of their suffering, and I am here to rescue them and bring them to a better place, a place flowing with milk and honey." Very famous line. Here is where God and Moshe really connect. Chapter 3. The very famous story of the burning bush. Real and connective dialogue happens between God and Moshe in this chapter, as though Moshe was speaking to someone directly standing next to him. From that moment on, Moshe and God communicate as human to human. We are human, The words in the Torah reflect our humanity. They are there for us to understand and communicate. Chapter 3 is a demonstration of humility, sensitivity, as Moshe humbly pleads with God, please don't assign me this undertaking, please. This is a very important point in the relationship between God and the people Israel with Moshe as now their chosen leader. God is going to prove that he is the creator of all, and by choosing the lowest of society, the slaves, to become a great nation, God is going to guide the Israelite people into the role of the light unto the world. And the world will see what humanity is supposed to be like through us. And we are to live as those examples. That is what it means as the chosen people. Not that we're better, but we were chosen for that job. The rest of the Torah is the instruction guide on how to become that people. He doesn't just assign us this role, he gives us the rules and regulations and the ability to learn how to become that people. This is a very important point in the history of our people, the book of Shemot, the Parsha of Shemot. God not only wanted to prove to the Israelites that they were going to leave Egypt, but he had to prove to the world, a world of paganism, a world that many gods, and this God did this and that God did that, that there was only one God, one master architect, one creator, and he was going to do it. And he was going to take these downtrodden slaves, and they were going to be the examples of the world, and this was part of his plan. Moshe was going to be the Israelites' leader for the job. Now, another enormously important point in this Parsha, again, it's huge, it covers a lot. Besides the human-to-human dialogue, this Parsha, God revealing his name to Moshe, the only thing I can stress is to take a moment and look at this chapter 3, verse 14 through 16. It is a very serious and significant dialogue, and it deserves your attention, and I encourage you to read it. God and Moshe talk. He tells Moshe his plan. Moshe is highly uncomfortable because he doesn't want the job. God assures him that he will have all the resources to do the job correctly. Moshe is so overwhelmed, and rightly so, and he needs reassurance and the answers to the many questions that he has and that the questions he believes the people are going to have. And God said, I will be with you, I will be with Aaron as you speak, and tell both of you exactly what to do. Don't worry. That's in chapter 4. Aaron comes into the storyline, and the two go and tell the elders of the community, show them the signs of God, the rod, and they're convinced. Then Aaron and Moshe go off, and they speak with Pharaoh. This must have been a different Pharaoh than the one that had chased Moshe away years before, because he accepts the meeting with him. But when they leave Pharaoh, Pharaoh is very upset, and he's challenged. Who is this God? Now, by the way, do you remember any of what I said in the beginning, that Moshe was born, and then the whole thing with the Midianites? It's huge. The Parsha is huge. And it could lose you. Just remember, it's our history, and we need to know the whole thing. Like I said, it could be 3 parshiot, not 1. So, Moshe is challenging Pharaoh. So then Pharaoh says, I'm going to challenge you, and I'm going to challenge your people, and he makes it worse for them. And then the people get so aggravated at him. What did you do? Why couldn't you have left us be? God and Pharaoh then are now going to have a dance. They're going to play a little game. Who's more powerful, right? And in Pharaoh's mind, it is the mightier that shall fall. He shall let you go because of a great might. Indeed, because of a greater might, he shall drive them out. 6 chapters, very long. Enjoy the story. Shabbat Shalom.